This is what we got for an exhaust. Well, what is it? It's just a bunch of 2.5-inch pipe. That's all it is. Bends and things and all this other stuff. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to make an exhaust, basically a mock-up exhaust. Now, we'll probably use it, and the whole thing is that after we have a mock-up exhaust, we didn't spend any money to mock it up. That way we know exactly what to get when we're building another one. We know where the muffler is, we know where the mounts are, we know where the flanges are, and we can just copy it if we want to make it out of new stuff. And plus, what is this exhaust supposed to do for us? Well, it's supposed to do like 3 things. First thing, it's supposed to get all the exhaust gases out the back of the car without having them go in the cabin so they don't fumigate you. It's like, that's bad, you know? Second thing, when you go over a jump in a rally and you come down, you want this exhaust to stay on the car. Pretty self-explanatory. And third, if you come over that jump and land and the exhaust doesn't stay on and you have $10 into it, who cares? It doesn't matter, you know. Leave it there. You'll go pick it up later. But that's the only thing. It's just like, well, those are the 3 things we're looking at. First things first. Let me grab some pipe, and then we're going to go up to the downpipe, and we're going to work our way backwards. Here's what we're going to use for a quick release section of the downpipe. Here's the downpipe. First part of the section is, the V-band clamp that we did before. Absolutely fantastic on having this thing seal up to the turbo, and just I really like the V-band clamps. Second thing is, like I showed you on the Escort rally car, is that we're going to use a spring system, or a spring clamping system, to keep the downpipe and the first pipe, I think you would call it, or cross pipe or whatever, but I'm not really sure. I'm just calling it the first pipe, just to keep this section and this section together, because this has an expansion. This is called a slip joint. Goes in there like that. With the spring, on one end and one end, compressing it together, it gives a pretty tight seal. Another thing, with the spring compressing, having a spring bolted here and having a spring clamped here, what happens is when the car is moving around and the exhaust is moving around, you got movement in it. So why do you want movement in it? So you don't break all the welds. That's a big thing. You've got to have movement, or the ability for the system to move, in order for you not to break all the welds, and that's pretty big. And also with the spring, it clamps everything together and it seals it up. Now, most people, when they see a slip joint like this, they'll generally see a U-shaped clamp on it, which is a standard exhaust clamp. I hate those things personally. I mean, I do it on a car, like it's just like, if I have nothing else around, okay, I'll use it, but I really don't. Why? Because that U-clamp comes around here and compresses on the second, the second section comes in and compresses. What it does, it makes an indentation in the pipes, both of them. It compresses them together to make a seal so it doesn't leak. Well, what does that do? It makes it absolutely horrible to get off of the car. I mean, I have a special snap-on tool that you pound in there and expands it out and you can pull it out, but not very many people have that stuff. And that's the reason why I don't like them. I mean, and they never really seal that well. There's always gaps. I've never liked them at all. But other than that, what I did was on this, instead of showing you, in the car where it is, I'll show afterwards where everything is going to end up with the springs and everything. But I marked it right here because this is right here is the biggest section I have to put my hand down there and pull up. Now, what am I using for the spring system setup? Well, remember, this is part of the Passat door bars that we use for bits and pieces of fabrication work on the car. Now, what else I have is this. This is the sway bar link clamp, or the clamp that holds the sway bar in over the bushing on the Coupe GTs, 4000 Quattros, all of those cars. So I got a bucket of these things. We also have an M8 bolt like this, big. You try and get the one with an integrated washer, a really big one on the end. I mean on the nut, because what it is you want to start your weld on the inside and loop it up around, but not contact the actual washer. And you have a 13 millimeter M8 thread pitch nut with an integrated washer on there. So when you have this spring is from, you know what, I got a bunch of them, so I assume it's either from trailer drum brakes or from my Dodge drum brakes. They're common everywhere. Any car has had drum brakes. You know, this just happens to be a relatively large one, but what it is that it goes right here on the M8. With this clamped down to there, it's not moving anywhere, you know? And with this, here on the bolt hole for the sway bar mount is where this is going to go. All I have to do is take some pliers, crimp this down so it makes a loop, you know? And that way, when I have where I mark this, where I'm going to put this section right here, I got a big amount of distance to put my arm down through, and using this, I can stick my finger, let me see if I can get it, like this, and pull it right up and get it off. So I got tons of leverage. That's a big thing. So when you put this in, wherever it works up in your car, to where you can get the most amount of leverage on this section, on this little clamp, is what you want to do. Because in order for you to get this thing off, if it's going to be boiling hot to get the thing off, like on a service, you're going to be making a tool anyway to do it, because you're not going to want to touch it. Even with the Kevlar gloves, by the time you get it off, your hand's going to be burnt up. But other than that, you know, it's each individual car is like this. This is just the way, you know, this is the position right here where it fits best for me. Maybe not you, but it fits best for me. And when you sit there and you look at how am I going to weld it, well, tap it all the way in to where it's absolutely final, where this is going to be. So this spring is going to be up like that. I am going to use, with this right here, the smallest section is going to be onto the downpipe. The reason why with this wide section is, this clamp can go in here and slide off and have full contact with the entire mount section. If I reverse it and put this in here, this thing is floating on the ends where they lip up, and you don't want that. Because you want full contact. Whatever you're doing, anything, you want full contact for basically strength and stability. Whether or not that is true, I'm making it up in my old mind, which I just think, sure, yeah, that sounds logical. And plus, you know, with the smallest section here, I can weld up inside here and it'll be fine. You know, it's just like it. You know, I think it's going to be okay. But first things first, let me clean this up, and we'll get my gear on, clean this up, weld it up. I'll throw it back in the car, raise the car, and we'll go underneath the car to see how everything else is going to have to go around, because we're going to start in the front, and then we're going to go to the rear, and then we're going to work to the middle, because the middle is the easiest section. The rear and the front are the hardest because we have to go around drive tracks. So, but that's here in a bit. First thing is, let me get my stuff on, let me weld this up, and we will get this thing all worked out. So we can get this thing back on the rotisserie. I like this. It took me a little while to figure out, you know, what I was going to use, but no, it's just like, yeah, all right. All right, let me get this thing, let me get my stuff on and clean this up, get my welder going, blast it out, and throw it on the car. Huh? How's that for quick release? Still got some movement, not very much, it's really stiff, but it'll move if it's forced. There's your quick release downpipe. Old sway bar mount, old brake return spring, old bolt, and exhaust pipe. Let me go throw this on, jack the car up, let's go underneath the car and figure out where we got to cut in order to make everything miss the drive shaft, at least in the front. Here's the downpipe. As you can see here, I'm not sure you've seen, but here's the spring and catch right up here. Here's a tie rod. The reason, you have a lot of space here and a lot of space here. I couldn't put it here because the tie rod when you're turning, let's say, what is it, all the way to the right, is right up, you can't really see it, but it'd be right around here, which would block the downpipe. So I have to keep it in the original location. Yeah, not bad. I put the old the whole crusty old heat shield. I have a couple other ones. I just didn't feel like going to go pick it up. So this is good enough for us to miss it. I'm going to turn the camera around. Let me show you exactly where I want it to end up for the first section of the exhaust, because we're just going to trim this up a little bit. Not bad. And then I'll show you what I have to put in here to make the exhaust work. I think it's, I think it looks kind of neat. Yeah, other than that, let me turn the camera around. I'll show you what I have to make the exhaust and where it's going to end up. Here we are at the back of the transmission. What it is that the first flange to connect the exhaust system is going to be right here. Why is that? It's because it's the most amount of room to get wrenches in. And when you have the most amount of clearance room right here, the flange is usually at a 2 or 3 bolt. You can have the 2, let's say if it's a 2 bolt flange, I decide to put in there, don't know yet. It's going to be right here, because the flange is oval. This will give you the most amount of ground clearance on the pipe on where it sits down. That's pretty much the reason why I'm putting it right around here. Plus you can get wrenches in there and get it out. And if there's the most amount of clearance right here, it has plenty of room to move back and forth without hitting the transmission or hitting the chassis. That's a big thing for me. Now, also the center pipe, the center pipe that's going to connect the rear muffler to the front pipe is going to be right here because of this right here, this indentation. This indentation in the transmission will allow me to bring the pipe just a little bit closer to give me just a little bit more ground clearance. The more ground clearance I have, the better. And especially if the flanges, sometimes it's so tight you have to turn the flange 90 degrees to have a 2-hole flange up and down. What the problem is the bolt on the bottom, because it's usually about an inch lower. There's a good chance that will hit a rock and muck up the threads or bend the flange or whatever. I'm just trying to avoid all of that by having the flange go back and forth, whether it's a 2-hole or a 3-hole, just to have the most amount of ground clearance I can. And that is one of the things you're going to try and look at, because the lower you can get your car, the better it's going to handle, pretty much. So let me, this is the pipe. Did I show that to you? It's just a couple of bends, just ratty old pipe that I'm going to slice up and just make it work. First thing is, let's get it to the flange point right here, just tacked in, and then we will go to the muffler, get it to where that's going to be good clearance around the drive shafts. Then we can build the mid pipe. See? Simple as pie. All right, let me get my stuff on, start cutting everything up. Well, with this first section of the downpipe in, I got plenty of clearance over here for the CV joint. You know what? I'm going to wait. I'm going to go do the rear muffler. Why is that? Because this thing might have to curve up and curve down, because this is as much as I could, but if it curves up and curves down, I'll use this. What I'll do is I'll slice this in half, bring it and just rotate it and bring it up to here. I want to first see where, if I can get the rear muffler in, then I can figure out where the mid pipe is, where it's going to end up, because I might have to have a section right here. Not sure, but I know I can sit there and I can turn this around like this if I want to, no problem. You know, that's what's so good about having that spring up there, is that you have plenty of options. But right now, I think the best option for me is to stop, go do the rear muffler, then figure out, all right, now I have, if the pipe comes right here, is it more advantageous for the pipe to come here to bend out a little bit and for this to come over here and bend in a little bit? Don't know. I got to see where I have that rear pipe, because I thought this is going to be, you know, it's easy. This is cut one pipe and most of it's done. That's ridiculously easy. Now, just to figure out where exactly where the best place to have that flange will be. That's the thing. And now Now that I know, okay, I'm looking at it, the biggest thing is you've got to change gears when you need to change gears. And this is changing gears to go to the back. I mean, it's all the same because I had to do it anyway. But hey, listen, this is just what's going to happen. Let's just go to the back. Here's the muffler that I'm going to use. What it is, I have no idea what it came off of. It was in the junk pile. But what it is, the thing is, it's not rusted out. Yes, there's surface rust on it, but not bad. As you can see, it's really clean metal, really thick metal. And I'll wall the tailpipe out so it just goes beyond the bumper so it doesn't burn anything up. But what it does have, it has some really good mounts on the side, and it still has the mounts right here to go onto the rubber mounts, or the exhaust rubber isolator mounts, if you want to call them that, or just hanger mounts. What it is, let's take a look at the, let's go up here and let's take a look at the trunk floor, and I got to trim some stuff there, then we can put this on and figure out where it's going to go. Here's the bottom of the trunk pan, what it is, or boot floor if you want to call it that. Remember, these are toolbox trays covering up all the rust. I have to trim out these pieces first. That's a given. That way the muffler, we'll put it pretty much in between, equidistant in between, so we can, it gives the most amount of heat dissipation around it. This is also going to have a heat shield on it. What it is if you take the muffler up like this is pretty much where it's going to go. What it is, if I put these mounts, if I reverse the mounts and put them up here and have them hanging down, this distance right there is the distance of the bottom of the differential. So it gives us the most amount of ground clearance underneath the car. If I can do it this way, that means the skid plate is almost protecting the rear muffler. And then, depending on where it is, I got plenty of bends to go around the CV shafts. I think I might have the flange right in here. If I have the flange, that's basically where the original Audis was right around here. If I put it here, that way I can get wrenches up inside there, I can pull the bolts, and that way it's just less of a, to get around the suspension, I have to pull it down like this and pull it out. If it's a lot less, how can I put it, maneuvering to get it out, the better, All right, let me get this thing all squared away. Let me trim this all up, and then we can start figuring out exactly where the mount for the muffler is going to be. Here's the muffler in place. Use a 4x4 post, jack, couple blocks. I put in a 1/2-inch piece of plywood to give myself an even air gap from the front of the muffler to the rear of the muffler. Also, when I use this piece of plywood and I jack the muffler from the center, what it does, it makes the muffler exactly equal with the original floor pan of the 4000 Quattro, which means it looks level, when you're looking at it. I also looked at the end to give it a straight line shot. Also, what we got to do now is make piping that goes around the CV shafts and the differential mount. So we have to put the split for the center pipe to this pipe in the best place where we can easily access it and easily get over the CV shaft, so we don't have to pull the CV shaft in order to get it out. And then we'll worry about the mounting. I'm thinking about making the mounting unboltable on the back. Not sure yet, but first things first, let's figure out what we can do with getting a pipe that wraps around the mounts and the CV shaft. Here's the muffler in underneath, and where our routing considerations are. First thing, do you see this right here? This right here is a factory indentation for the original muffler. Guess what? We're going to follow it. I'm going to go this way, just get an elbow. We're going to go straight up like that and kind of wrap around the CV joint, and let's see where it ends up. Well, that's kind of what the pipe is going to look like. What I am going to do is I'm going to extend it, well, 3 to 4 inches. That way this two-piece flange or two-hole flange is right here. So I can easily get at it with wrenches. Now I want to leave it up high enough just in case I want to run an extension to pop it off with a zip gun. If I run that, so I'm going to get another piece of straight pipe, 3 to 4 inches roughly, and that way I am going to put this all together and run. This is where this pipe is going to, so it's going to easily be pulled over and not conflict. It's shallow enough, pretty much, where I can just bring the muffler down a little bit and pull it right out. So I think right here is going to give us the most amount of room. You know, I can actually bring it over here a little bit, give it the most amount of room to get wrenches and all that stuff up. So let me go get a small piece of pipe, about 3 to 4 inches, and let me see what I can make it work. Well, I went into the box and I found this extension pipe, and I'm sitting there looking at it going, huh, if I put it here, I bring this one up here, cut it right there, with this right here, it fits absolutely perfect. This is exactly where I want it. So, it's like anything. When you guys dig into your stuff, I have to pretty much cut it right here, right there. That way, cut the benducts. All I want is the straight portion. You know, the junk pipe that you might find might work better than the pipe that you already cut. So, how about that? I'm going to cut this up. That way, I think this in 3, yeah, I think that'll work out really a lot better. So, let me cut that up. It'll put it exactly where I want it to be. I'm going to tack it in. Then, I'm going to go to work on the center pipe so we can get the front pipe or the crossover pipe over there, or whatever you want to call it, done. All right, I got 2 tacks on here. What it is, I am going to hold off on this for right now. So I'm looking at it going, wonder how that's going to fit with the center pipe. Let's get the center pipe kind of mocked up to figure out where this is going to go. I think I have to take off that bend and go straight, or have a straight piece of pipe. Not really sure yet, but let's see how the center pipe looks and where it's going to go. This right here is a pipe off a center muffler delete for Audi Quattro. I think this is going to be good. What I'm going to do is, off camera, I tacked the mounts on the back so I can put this thing up. I'm going to use the spare pieces and another section of pipe with a 2-hole flange to put up here. It's going to be an awful lot of like small welding, but it should go in all right. This pipe looks really, really good. Whether or not I can collect it from here to there is another story. So, all right, let me get some extra pipe. I'm gonna take the old elbows that I cut off of this, just stack it so I can get a nice, basically, straight shot down to where this flange will be. Exhaust is all tacked on. Let's, I got to clean up this right here and put a mount in to support this. And then we can go to the back and do that one. But let's, I got to clean this up first, then we'll go to the bench and I'll show you what I'm using for a mount for this right here. This is what we got to use for the first part of the first mount on the center pipe. This is just an exhaust mount. I cut it off a Jetta. You can tell because there's Volkswagen Audi part numbers here. And it even says, even has the 4 rings of torture right there. Got a bolt. This is an M10. You can tell it's a Ford bolt because it has a 13mm head. And I have a nut on the end. This right here is the other half of the Subaru crossbar that we use for the dashboard. I'm just going to slice it off right here and just trim it down to what I need. And this is just a piece of tubing. It's split tubing right here, so I assume it's off a garage door. That's the only thing I could think it came off of. So, what am I planning on doing? This mount, generally, these things right here are usually a royal pain to get off. And I want to make the mount, I want to get this exhaust off really quick. So, what do I have? I have the tube that goes in here that's going to protect it from the threads chewing into it. It's going to be cut to length, and I'm going to use this nut on the other end. Well, I'm not sure which side it's going to be, but on the side of this or on the side here where I'm going to clean it off, whichever way it fits the best, weld it. That way, all I have is a 13-inch or an M10 bolt in there. A 13, you'll pull it off and come straight down. That way, you're not trying to force it off or do anything like that. You know, and I'm going to probably do the same thing to the back of the car because I can't stand these things. They're great because they don't give up, but they're just a pain to try and get off especially when you're in a hurry. And this is how it's going to be. The nut's going to be like that, and it's not going to go anywhere. Let me cut this up, trim it all up, put it on that, and weld it. And then we can weld the nut on the back and then move backwards because we're going to do another mount. I'll probably use the other side of this or right here. Don't know. Back there. All right. Whew. I had to put the tailpipe on. I just had to. I'm going to cut it with a Sawzall, but that's at the very end, seeing how exactly where I want it. What do we have? We have an exhaust system. At the very worst is a template for brand new pipes to put on. At the very best, all the welds hold and I have an exhaust system and it didn't cost me any money except time. You know, and it's all junk, recycled stuff. It's off the floor and I'm pretty happy with it actually. Oh, the mount over here, I didn't explain. as you saw, that flange that I cut up, it was a header flange. I used all the pipes on the header that's on this car. So I just recycled some of the flange because I like some of the arcs in it, and you know, I had to. Why not? But the last thing we're going to do on the video is I'm going to bring the skid plates in, and we're going to try and fit the frames up, because the main thing is just getting all where the mounts are going to go so I can weld them on. That's it. So let me go grab the skid plates. I'm going to push this stuff away, bring the skid plates in, and show you what we got. This is my old skid plate off my original Audi Quattro. It's the second generation of skid plate, because the first one I kind of mangled a little bit going off Mount Washington, but hey, listen, nobody's perfect. What it is I built this to be quick release. And I didn't know anything back. I knew a lot less back then than I know now. And what it is, I had two M6s right here. I had tabs on the bottom, so pretty much you undo these two bolts, you pull the skid plate forward, and it dropped right off. Also, my old Audi Quattro had, had the original subframes, had all of that. So this is all kind of not going to work for this application. I got to completely redo it, but it gives me a chance to do it a little bit better than what I did before. This is really heavy, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to chop all of this stuff off, and then I'm just going to try and use almost all the pieces back to make sure it all works. And at least that's what my plan is. Whether or not it's going to work is another thing, but let's see if we can make something pretty cool. All right, let me get a wrench, and I will pull these M6s off. We will pop this thing back so we can start cutting up all of the tubing, so it gives us plenty of stock to let us do what we need to do. First thing would be putting this bar right there. That's going to be fun. All right. Here's the old bar. What I'm going to do is I'm going to shorten it so it goes to right here. What does that do? It gives me a lot of protection. It shortens the bar, so it makes it stronger actually. I am going to put side things to go back to the chassis, but I need to make sure I don't contact anything with the oil pan, and I got to make sure I can get the belt off without taking the mount off. That's a big thing. So I got to build at least, I'm going to put 3/4 of an inch here, because what's going to happen is the skid plate's going to come up like this, bend up, and protect this curve. Now take a look at this. I don't know if you guys can see it really well. I'm going to do a close-up later, but you can tell the fiberglass went here and the gel coat is right here. So this is all empty airspace. You touch it, it breaks. Just make sure if you guys buy one of these things, see, all this is going to have to be taken off, and I'm going to have to redo everything. But the skid plate's going to come up, it's going to lift up to protect this entire lip, because I'm going to have to do body work with like some angel hair or something like that on it. And that way I'll get it all done and make it work. But I just thought I'd let you know, watch that. So, all right, let me just cut this up. I have to take a good, 2 or 3 inches off the ends, and then I am going to make the mounts to put it in, just weld it up, and be done with this. Because this is, the main bar is pretty much the only thing we're going to be doing. Everything else is going to be to the chassis at original points. And I'll show you that. This right here is what we're going to use for the base mounting system for the main bar. What it is, this right here was, do you remember the casting furnace that I built? Still haven't used it, but I built it anyway. And I built it out of an old compressor. Well, this was the base plate that held the compressor motor and the compressor head on it. And it's really tough, really thick steel. And I'm not sure how, I didn't measure it yet, but it's really tough. So this is going to be the basis for the mount to be welded to the bar. Now, to weld to the chassis, I am going to have the same thing, a 4-hole mount, but it's going to be this, and it's going to attach to this. These are the front bumper mounts off of a 2010 Jetta with a 2.507K, so guess what's coming down the pike? Real soon. But what it is that they have nutserts in them. I don't know if you can see that, but they're like twice as thick as any nut I have around. So what does it do? It increases the amount of thread strength so it won't pull out if you hit something really hard. Hopefully it just holds it together. But this is just the front bar, not the side bars that go back. All right, now what I got to do now is I got to cut these things up to figure out exactly, you know, how close I can get them, and then, you know, to make sure they clear everything on here, cut out exactly what I need out of this plate, drill the holes, make it all fixed, weld everything together, you know. In my mind, that sounds easy, which I still think it is, but yeah, let's just see what happens. All right, let me start doing it up so we can get this thing done. What I got here is going to be the mounts to the chassis. Not the bar, but to the chassis so the bar bolts to it. What it is, I have the front bumper mounts like this. I put in some M10s with capture nuts, integrated washers with 16 millimeter heads. Pretty much what it is you're going to have to put a spacer in there. This is a 1 inch thick square tubing, very, very robust. What it is the only reason why I'm putting it in there is so I can put them on here and I can get an impact gun to mark them all out. The biggest thing is we got to be able to get this thing out really quick. I could say like 2 minutes, but I'm looking to get out in like 45 seconds, you know? Just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and we're done. You know, we pull the bar out. All right, first things first, I got to cut this thing up, weld it to this or tack weld it to this to make sure everything works. Then we're going to cut the plate on both sides, then weld it all together and attach it to the chassis. what am I doing here? I did that one over there. What these are compression struts, basically. It's a strut that's 90 degrees off to the chassis to make sure this bar right here that holds the skid plate doesn't go backwards into the motor, and it'll always maintain its position for the mounts for the skid plate. Unless you hit something really hard, and then you're not worried about that at that point. Next thing is, I'm going to show you, this is right here, and how I'm going to mount this. It's going to be doing two things. First thing is this mount right here is going to stop it from being pushed back. Second thing is, seeing how we have this door bar, what we're going to use to mount to the chassis is this door bar. This is just a piece of one of the Passat door bars. Also, what I have is I found this is a curved piece of metal in the scrap pile. I cleaned it up and I beveled the edge. When this thing is on the chassis, like this will be put on, with that compression bar in like this. So it only goes in so far here, and then you just push it up. It won't go any further than that, but what happens is it just pretty much it won't rattle. That's the main thing, because once this thing is, up like this, it creates a little bit of tension. Once the tension is on there, it won't rattle about, so there's no rattles in the friggin' skid plate mounting system, and that's kind of what you want. Also, when you're doing this alone, because you will be, having these two bars right there with those tabs in there, when you push this in the tabs and lift it up, it should automatically center where the bolts are. That way you can do it with one hand, put a bolt in there, and go, pretty much. So let me cut this stuff up, clean it, give it a couple of really good tacks, and then we're going to call the episode. Well, we've gotten a lot of stuff done. Oh, I'm happy now. All the mounts are exactly where I know they're going to work with the CV shafts. I'm ecstatic about that. I'm ecstatic about the whole thing because we have a quick release downpipe, a quick release turbo. We have the exhaust pretty much in. I mean, it's not the greatest in looking material-wise, but it's tight to the body. All the mounts are quick release. You just unbolt them and there you go. And the skid plate front frame is on. Remember, the skid plate is going to be internally braced. It's going to be just a lot like the WRC stuff, but I'll get to that when I do the skid plates. The only thing I might add is some, how can I put some capture nut mounts over here or something like that. Not really sure what and where I'm going to do it, but I can do that on the chassis because you have to remember I'm building off of the skid plate to go into the chassis. It's nothing abnormal, but other than that, next time, hopefully I'm going to pull everything out. I got to go, right now I have no argon. What it is I have like 0 argon, so I got to go get some more. And I want to weld up this much better, the exhaust and the front frame. I want to weld that up so nothing moves when I actually take it out of the chassis. When I take it out of the chassis, that's when I'm going to pull the engine transmission down, all the stuff out of the car. That's a big thing. Then I'm going to throw it on throw it over next to the bench, and I'll work on that later. But what happens is I didn't do 2 things in here. I didn't do the brake ducts or the steering rack. If I have the motor and all that stuff out, it's going to be much easier to show you what my thought process, and it's going to be a lot easier for me to do the mounting system and the quick release mounting system in order to get the steering rack out really quick. Other than that, thank you very much for showing up. Remember, none of this is difficult. I'm just some dumb hillbilly out here in New Hampshire that has a junk pile and a bunch of cutting discs. That's about it. Anybody can do this. You can easily do this. I mean, I'm still looking at, when I get this thing on the rotisserie and after I do the rack and a couple other small things, I'm going to tell you right now, I still have 2 months worth of work of just making this thing, just cleaning it up, making sure everything is gusseted and making sure all the rust is gone and all that stuff. So I definitely have a lot of work ahead of me. But the more and more I look at it, the more happier I get saying, oh yeah, this is gonna work. This is gonna work. Okay, this will work. And it just, you're gonna feel good after you do it. Trust me, you know. So, but thank you very much for showing up. I really appreciate it. You know, I hope you have a great day, and hope to see you on the next one. You know, next one should be next one will be the steering rack, you know, and the brake ducts, and I'll show you that. Hopefully, it's going to be relatively small because I'm not going to do a lot of stuff on doing the chassis I already did on the Sport Quattro. So, but we also have to get the Sport Quattro back on the rotisserie, on that rotisserie also. And I'll probably, you know, when I do this, I'll measure everything out and I'll show you putting this on the rotisserie where you get the center line and stuff like that. So. Hopefully, if I remember. All right. Well, thank you very much for showing up. I really appreciate it. Hope you have a great day. Bye now.